Welcome back to another inspiring episode of Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm, of course, your host with Most Phil Better, the podcast mogul, and today's guest is someone who's embodied resiliency, transformation, and the power of self-love. After facing one of life's greatest challenges, a stroke, this remarkable individual chose to redefine their life in the most powerful way. Through their journey of recovery, they discovered the keys to self-love and self-acceptance, not only healing themselves, but also finding their purpose, helping others heal. Now, with a dedicated mental health counselor, they are on a mission to help people improve their relationships, starting with the most important one, the relationship with themselves. By empowering others to embrace self-love and overcome inner struggles and unlock their true potential, they guide their clients to become the absolute best version of themselves, inside and out. So get ready for this episode, which will be filled with hope, heart, and actionable insight to help you invest in yourself. Please welcome our extraordinary guest, Gail DeHart. Gail, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to share my story because my story, some people think it was short. Some people think it just happened. Well, 2006, I had a stroke.
Mm-hmm.
And originally, I decided I was just going to roll over and die.
Okay.
Except that wasn't on the radar of anybody else I knew. So my mother got involved. My friends got involved. And they would sit and read. And every day they'd read to me most of the time, and we'd do things. And I would get to read one sentence, and it usually took me about 5 minutes because I could read 3 words, and then I'd have to go find more words. And physical therapy can offer a whole lot depending upon what you're expecting to get from it. For me, I used my horses for physical therapy. I had 2 horses, and I lived 15 stairs up. So I used to crawl down on my butt. My mother used to push me in a wheelchair, go to the horses, feed the horses, play with the horses. Somebody would help me with the haying of the horses. And sometimes I'd sit on the horses, but I'd play with the horses. And then we'd go back to the house and we'd do this twice a day. And realized that at the time I weighed 250 pounds and my mother was 5 foot nothing and weighed 110 pounds soaking wet. And she was 88 years old. And she said, "No, I won't die until I know you're not going to a nursing home." So that went on for about 2 years. I went from a wheelchair to a walker to 2 crutches to a cane and moved forward. And what I learned in that is that this didn't happen with the same mindset that I had. This happened because I had to change my thinking about myself. All the negative thinking I had about myself is that you can't do this, you're not worth that, you don't deserve this, you're useless. All the things that probably most of us have heard a whole lot while we were growing up, saying you're stupid and other things, even though they were meant well to try and motivate us to do things, all these things would come up. And I would have to remind myself, no, if you're going to recover, you can't be any of these things. So I had to constantly sit there and tell myself, no, out loud, no, you're a success. No, you can wiggle your left foot just like you do your right foot. No, you can move your left arm just like your right one. And I constantly had to keep telling myself all of these things. It got rather boring. It got rather difficult. It got highly unmotivating. I used to just get really upset because along with having a stroke, most people get severely depressed. They go together. And nothing that anybody gave me at the time would work to help with the stroke. The only thing that kept me moving is my mother just refused to quit and would just scream and yell and rant and rave until I used to do what she wanted me to do. So I do it and then move forward. So that's where that went. Why did I go to change my career to being mental health counseling? Because we live in a world today where we feel that we're entitled to things. If you look at the reason behind being entitled is because we have a very deep-seated feeling of emptiness inside, a deep-seated feeling of longing and wanting to belong and wanting to feel like people care, society cares, life cares. But we've been raised in a culture of artificial intelligence, social media. So if you don't want or have time to spend time here, give the kid the phone. And I was a big culprit of the same thing. It's easier to do that than spend time to teach and stuff. But what that left me with a lot of negativity for myself. So I had to work at learning first of all, what does self-love mean? Then I had to learn what are good emotions and what are bad emotions. Then I had to realize that there's no such thing as good emotions or bad emotions. They're just emotions and they have different effects on us. And decide what emotions did I want to use to help in the recovery, recognizing that I was not the stroke. The stroke was a issue, but it was not me. So I had to remind myself it was not my stroke. It didn't belong to me. I didn't want to keep it. I didn't want to claim it. So I had to keep telling myself, no, it's just there and we're working to get rid of it. So I kept working at it and working at it. I got better. I went back to driving a little bit. I lived in a very small area, so driving wasn't too bad because if I lived in the city, I wouldn't have been able to go back to driving because driving, believe it or not, is a very stressful event. And
Mm-hmm.
there were times when I would drive down the road. Nobody else was down the road, but I'd sort of zone and start weaving off to the side, and then I'd sort of wake up. No, it wasn't a seizure. It was just zoning because I was stressed. So that's what I did. Then I went back to school, slowly back to school. One course in learning some basic skills of understanding the difference between self love, self esteem, self worth, understanding how beliefs, either you want to call it universal love, you want to call it Christianity, you want to call it whatever you want to call it, but I had to have a universal or something higher than myself to help keep me motivated to move forward, to help me learn to love myself because I grew up in a family that was very difficult and I can't blame my parents because people who hurt people hurt people. If you haven't been raised in anything different than what you know, that's what you use. So I had to learn all these skills on how to teach myself to love myself, teach myself to take care of myself, to teach myself I was important. What kept me motivated was I had a dream. I had a dream that I was going to help people reestablish a foundation of self-love for themselves so that when people insulted them and stuff, they wouldn't feel the need to kill themselves. They would just go, well, that's your opinion and that's mine. So I've been starting to working at doing some of that. And as I do that, I find that people start to feel better. And it doesn't matter what your illness is or what your problem is. Self love can be a tool to help you overcome mental health issues, physical issues, um, emotional issues, trauma issues. It's not to say that it's a panacea, it's a tool, but it's a tool that as you start to like yourself, when things get difficult, you find the strength and ability to move forward. Because we live in a culture today that has gone through so much pain, so much trauma, so much disability and debilitating events that it's very hard to stay motivated to do anything. So that's what got me on this road, to want to share with people, to want to help people, because I've been down the road. I've helped some people already. I'm in the process of putting together my website. I already have a um, email that I have, but there's not too much on it at the moment. And I decided that it is a significant thing to help people.
Yes, I want to talk about the helping people because obviously, if people can tell you, you are a little up there in age, um, unlike most entrepreneurs, but you seem to have the vitality, even though you suffered a stroke. You seem to have the energy of someone who is like in their mid 30s.
Yes,
How did you, like, coming off of a stroke, which is a very debilitating event in most people's life,
yes.
um, and coming back to being a full functioning person again, quote unquote. I hate saying that, but it's to help everyone understand that you're like everybody else. The stroke didn't leave, or it hasn't left any seeable issues. But how do you keep the energy going like you're a 30-year-old? Because obviously you're at least 45 plus years old. How do you keep the energy going at your age?
Well, I have a dream. I have a motivation. I look to a higher power. For me, it's God. I find my resilience in what I want to do with the rest of my life. And I find that that's part of it. I also eat well, I exercise. I'm in the holiday season and I'm eating the sweets, which
Shh, it's
it's
fine.
not.
It's fine. It's the holidays. It doesn't count. From what I understand, from the 16th of December to the 16th of January, the dates don't actually exist. It's one day. It doesn't actually happen.
I
That's what
see.
I understand.
Okay, well, but my body sees it otherwise. And I'm well aware of what it does. So I tend to minimize because I like chocolate. What can I say? Just because I've recovered from something doesn't mean that I'm going to cut everything out that's not good for me. So, I usually eat well. I usually exercise. I swim. I drive. I look at life in a positive form. I meditate in the morning. I say affirmations throughout the day. When I start to feel like yuck, I keep reminding myself, no, you're doing this for a reason. Uh, Keep moving forward. And if people sit there and disagree with me, my comment is that's okay. You can disagree and have your opinion. I'm not here to make you agree with my opinion or not. I'm just here to share something with you that may or may not be of assistance for you. And there are a lot of people up there past the age of 45 that have redefined themselves and are becoming quite resilient because they have a motivation, they have a desire, they see a need, they see that when they are meeting that need, it's very fulfilling and it keeps one going. If I lived on junk food, it wouldn't work.
No, no, it wouldn't. With what you're doing, you mentioned that you do your affirmations. You mentioned your meditations that you do in the morning. Are there other things that you do to invest in yourself, to keep yourself young, vital, and able to hit those goals and that dream
Vitamins,
of yours?
vitamins. I make sure in the morning I have water. I make sure I drink purified water. Um, Like I said, I interact with people with similar goals. They don't have to be in the same area, but they too want to move forward and do something special. I spend limited amount of time with people in total negative mindsets. What I find most sad is there are a lot of people that have so much left to offer, but have bought into the reality that all you do is sit and talk about what you don't have and what you missed. And I can't do that, or I will wind up in the same place.
I love that. Pardon me. I love the fact that you're actively pursuing others with the positive mindset and limiting those negative interactions. Because it is true, you the famous saying, you are the result of the five people you hang around with, right? You become the
Yes,
sixth person. So if you hang around with positive people, you become the sixth positive. If you hang with those negatives, you'll become that negative Nancy that no one wants to be, because they're no fun. Negative Nancys are not fun to be around. But Gail, I want to know, in your journey so far, because like we said, you are 45 plus in age and you look fabulous. I wouldn't give you a
oh,
day
thank
over
you.
full 40. Um, what lesson have you learned that you feel has had the biggest impact on your life so far?
In which area?
I let's let okay, for two areas. We're gonna go with your life in general, just like overall life, so that can encompass whatever you want. And then I want to look at your journey so far into business and being a mental health positiviter, if you will,
Okay.
in that way.
My first step is my spiritual walk. In my spiritual walk, it doesn't matter. I'm a Christian. I am not a religious Christian. I am not a denominational believer. I just look at the Bible and I utilize what the Bible says basically in the New Testament to help keep me walking in knowing how much I'm loved and how much knowing that I'm loved, then I can love others. You cannot give to others if you have an empty cup. I use the analogy, if you come to me and you need a glass of water and my well is empty, I will maybe be able to give you mud, but I won't be able to give you a glass of water. So, with my affirmations and my reading and the choices that I make, I fill my well with water in the morning so that I can then share that with others. Because if I'm empty and I go share with others, then I'm drawing from them to give me what I need, where they're just as empty as I am. So if they're as empty as I am and I'm trying to get something from them, then we both make each other mad because we can't get anything from each other. And when I give to other people, I don't give with the quote unquote expectation of a specific return. I give and I tell them you can utilize the information as you choose. You can do with the information as you choose. I'm sharing based on what you asked me and what you think. And if you want to discuss it, we can discuss it. If you don't, that certainly is your choice. Then file it somewhere in your mind. And at some point in your life, you may decide you want to explore it. And whenever you want to, feel free. I'm around. And that's what I do with people. I don't force them to agree or disagree with what I believe.
I
I
love it.
just
Sorry, go ahead.
I just share.
I love that because it harkens back to what I like to say is, I when I meet people, I'm planting seeds.
Yes.
Whether a tree flower or nothing grows, that's fine. I'm planting seeds because I want to make everybody happy, happy in their own way, help them on their journey. And speaking of that, I want to know, because when I say I want to make people happy, they all assume that I'm a people pleaser. But when I say that I want to help people make themselves happy by helping them figure out figuring out a solution to their problem, right, with that planting of a seed. And that's a misconception people have when I say that. But a lot of people have misconceptions around self-love, and I
Hmm.
would love to know, what is the one that you see the most often around self-love, the misconception around self-love, and how do you help people redefine it so that they actually see the benefit of self-love?
Most people see self-love as very selfish, very quote unquote, the buzzword of the day, narcissistic, very me oriented, and it's all about me. My definition of self-love is I'm looking to heal and help me, improve me, so that then I can do something to help others. I can't help anybody if I can't help myself. I can't help anybody if I can't be a living example of the walk I'm talking. If I'm saying I'm doing blah blah blah, and then I go see Joe over there and tell him off and make him feel like he's 2 inches tall, I'm not an example of what I'm saying. So the only way for me to do that is to have myself filled, loving and caring for myself. One of the things is an example is it's the old adage that we've all heard is do unto others as you'd have them as you do unto yourself. Well, if you hate yourself, how are you supposed to do unto others loving kindness? Mine is do to others as Jesus has done for you. And no, I do not promote Jesus or profess Jesus or push Jesus, but I do sometimes use an example because it's a good example of what I do. I see Christians, non-Christians. I'm not picky as to who I talk to. I like to see what happens in the society we've lived in today. Like you talked about wanting to plant a seed. If your heart is so hardened that it's as hard as cement, you can't plant a seed because there's no place for the seed to go. So what you need to start doing is like in the old days when you were farming, you had to till the ground, you had to furrow the ground, you had to turn it over, you had to water it, you had to make sure that the seed had a place to germinate. So part of what I do is to help people, for lack of a better word, and I'm not sure it's even a word, unharden their heart.
It's a word on this podcast as of today, Gail.
Okay. Well, I help people find ways to soften their hearts so that they can plant a seed, so that they can see that they can have hope. Because so many people we encounter today have no hope and they don't care. And you tell somebody, well, if you do that, you're going to get arrested. So they say, oh, so what? If you do that, you're going to get hurt. So what? Because they don't care about themselves. So if you don't care about yourself, how are you supposed to care to help others? And how are you supposed to be an example to those around you? So that's what I do throughout my day. I work in an organization that's a Christian organization that promotes another way of healing in addition to the regular. They don't push it, they don't force it. It's just an additional way, an additional thing to help you find the strength you need. If you look at AA, NA, when any of those anonymouses, they talk about a higher power. Your higher power can be whatever you want to call it, but you need something to help move you along, move you up, move you through, especially if you feel like you're wallowing through the spring mud in northern New York where you're up to your knees in the mud and you're trying to get out to the road. You need something to help you along. Your boots aren't going to do it. You probably have lost your boots in the mud somewhere along the road anyway. So this is why I say you need something to help you along. And then you also have the analogy where the guy was in a flood and he wanted God to come rescue him. So first he had the guy in the lifeboat. Then he had the guy in the canoe. Then he had the guy in the motorboat. Then he had the guy in the helicopter. And he said no, he was waiting for God. And then was nobody. So he went to heaven and asked God, where were you? And God told him, I sent you this, 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 and that. What were you looking for? So we don't always get what we quote unquote think we're looking for. We need to look at what we're getting and see, is it is something that's going to help us and bless us, or is it going to make us feel worse?
I love that mentality. With all you, with what you're doing as a mental health counseling, and it requires this balance between empathy and professionalism, and keeping that boundary. How do you maintain this balance while supporting clients through some of their most vulnerable moments?
How do I maintain my balance? A lot of what I do, I haven't totally, I'm like in my residency of my
Okay.
counseling at this point, but that's okay. I was a professional before that too. But I do a similar thing. There is a balance that you have to have. Otherwise, you take on everybody else's pain, everybody else's problem, and you wind up burning out as well. As you've probably heard, especially when people go down to hurricanes and stuff, you get um, the burnout from relating to everybody else
Hmm.
because you haven't processed it yourself. So each day you have to process what you've encountered and remind yourself, is that part of me or was that part of them? Is that their way or is that mine? And let go of things. I have to let go of things every day. I go walking and I let go of things. I use nature to help me let go of things. I ask myself when I encounter people and I start thinking something that really doesn't resonate with the way I usually think, is, did I just take on somebody else's pain? If I did, then I need to release it and remind myself, no, that's not me, that's their pain. And I need to let go of their pain because to help them, I can't stay in their pain. I can walk alongside of them, but when I'm not with them, I have to let go of it. Or I'm no good to them either, because if I'm falling in the mud and they're falling in the mud, I can't pick them up if we're both falling.
That's true.
So those are the things that I do. My thing that I do at night is um, I watch TV, I exercise, I do my affirmations again, I read encouraging books, I read commentaries, I read documentaries, I read stories about people who have done um, phenomenal things at phenomenal ages. Just because you've passed the age of 45 doesn't mean you can't be a success. The guy who did Kentucky Fried Chicken was 80 when he made his millions. So I could very easily just sit back and say, well, I'm going to do nothing. But I reminded myself, you recovered from a stroke. You're going to go sit in the house and do nothing after all that work you did to recover from the stroke? Or are you going to teach people what you learned as you were in the process of recovering, as you found hope and motivation? Because I had to create most of this myself,
Yeah.
because I came from a medical background and everyone told me, you're never gonna, you're never gonna, you're never gonna. And I said, if you're gonna tell me I'm never gonna, please never gonna talk to me anymore. So, so I had two friends who said to me, okay, well, what do you need this week? You know, because sometimes you need prescriptions to get certain things done. So they'd ask me, well, what do you need this week? And um, they would help me with that. The thing that you need to recognize also is that drugs are a tool. Drugs are not the answer. Drugs can help if you are going to look for drugs to be the answer and only answer for your problem, you're just going to need more and more drugs because your body always wants to heal. So your body will keep pushing what you're swooshing down, it's trying to push up. So you'll just need more to push it down because it wants to push up. So what you need to do is you need to process, why do you need that medicine, and what is that medicine helping you to forget, and how can I use my self-love and strength from that self-love to walk through this wilderness and get to the other side, because I know on the other side it'll be a better place, and then I can also help others. And that is a very difficult step to take. You can have friends. Friends can walk with you. Friends can encourage you. Friends can be there with you, but nobody can make the journey for you but you. So if you want me to make the journey for you, I can't. Even if I wanted to, I can walk alongside you. I can encourage you. I can advise. I can suggest, but I'm not one who gives advice. I will make questions and suggestions, because if I give you advice, that advice would work for me. I have no idea if that advice will work for you.
Very
So
true.
I will pose questions. I will pose answers. I will offer different options if you have no idea for options. One of the biggest things that I found in working with people is that people have numbed out. Most people know four emotions. They know anger, sadness, bitterness, resentment, and hopelessness. I start out teaching people hope, self-love, self-compassion, and self-worth. So that as you walk your journey, you find that you feel you want to continue, because I can't pull you along. You have to want to come along.
Yeah,
And so that's what I do.
I love it. Gail, we are coming to the end of the episode, which I hate because you're a fantastic guest, and I'm enjoying every moment spending with you. But I want to go back, and I know you say you don't give advice to other people, but I'm going to ask you for a piece of advice to your 10-year-old self. So you're giving it to yourself.
Okay.
So I think we're fair play here because you know it's going to work for you. What advice would you give back to your 10-year-old self that you
If
wish
I
you had?
was an adult talking to my 10-year-old self, I would
Yes,
remind myself that not everybody is nasty. There are caring, loving people out there, that you were put on this planet to do something special. Everyone was put on the planet to do something special. All that's happened is you've had all this poop, for lack of a better term, put on top of it, so you don't even know what it is anymore. So what you can do is start to explore how to move the poop around so that you can find what's special about you, so that you can find that spark to get you to want to move forward again.
I love it. Gail, I want to thank you so much for being a fantastic guest. Your energy is so inspiring. So I want to thank you again for being here today.
Oh, you're welcome. And my website will be up and running pretty much by the end of the year. And but
Excellent.
what I
Go ahead.
call myself is Gail at helpselfhealing.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Gail. Of course, to my audience, make sure you check out the show notes down below to connect with Gail and check out her website once it's up and running. I want to thank you very much for listening, Gail. Thank you again for being here. And remember to always invest in yourself.